This is the CleanTech Showcase 2022, brought to you by Startup SAC and CleanStart, with support by SMUD. This is the first panelist discussion. Check the show notes for additional discussions.
Boy, it's just an exciting time for innovative startups and others who want to help lead the way to a clean energy future. Make our region a model for the rest of the country to follow. It's a good time for innovators to commercialize their ideas, as you've just laid out, in terms of, we've probably never had a better climate for accessing startup money, getting across the valley of death, and getting companies to success. The stars are really aligning. So what we're going to do now is turn to two panel discussions. And the first one is looking at the customer side of the equation, innovations and efficiency and electrification that will help achieve the goals that SMUD is talking about. And in any showcase that tries to deal with just 10 companies, you have to realize there's probably 10 times more ideas and companies that are out there. But this is a great place to start. I'll remind you that you can use chat to put questions for us to put to the panel. We're giving each panelist an introduction opportunity to talk about how things are going in their area. And I'll tell the panelists that you may get a general reminder from Jeff Bennett that you've got a minute to go. But we do want to get through everybody's presentation and lead time for discussion. So we've got 5 expert panelists this morning. I'm very pleased that they've agreed to talk. We're going to start with Rick Wylie, who's the president of Villara Building Systems and has been involved in improving building energy performance for decades here in the Sacramento area, and has been leading his company itself to become an innovator with new products and solutions for customers. So let me turn it over to you, Rick, to sort of take us through where you see the biggest gains to be made in the building sector and what we could do there. So let's welcome Rick Wylie.
Thank you, Gary. We're going to have my slides.
Yeah,
you should be able to show your slides, yes.
Do you want me to show them?
Thomas needs to stop sharing.
All right. Well, thank you again, Gary, and happy to be here today. And I'll try to walk through these pretty quickly. So the way Villara sees energy efficiency 2022 and beyond. First off, as Gary indicated, decades of great work in our whole industry and energy efficiency measures, kind of the true building blocks of building better homes. Starting with things like the building envelope, obviously the insulation, the ceilings and walls, windows, dual pane, low E, infiltration control, tightening up the homes and putting in mechanical ventilation. HVAC duct systems, big area of effort, insulated and airtight, verified airflow, verified leakage, low leakage, I should say, and fan watts, huge improvements in the last number of years. And then obviously efficient appliances and lighting. Those are kind of basic tools that are always valuable. But we're seeing a big pivot in all of the utilities, all of the everything we're talking about today is all about decarbonization or electrification. And if we're going to remove the carbon footprint, we're going to have to deal with removing the carbon. So that's something that Villara is working very hard in our role in the industry. We know we've got a part to play, and all about the electrified home. And the way we see that is it's a rooftop solar, it's a 20-year battery, we'll talk about that, integrated space and water heat pump system for space heating, space cooling, and water heating. Those are the elements we see are critical. So let's first start VillaGrid. We've developed a home battery system. This is using a much different chemistry, battery chemistry, lithium titanate. It's the world's safest chemistry. It's totally fire resistant. It is the most efficient. It is in both the watts in. You put in a watt, you're going to get out 0.97 watts. So very efficient storage and charge discharge. It's the most rapid charging and discharging battery available, highest capacity. Big deal is the 20-year warranty. That's critical for us. We felt like homes need something a little longer than a 10-year battery. So that's the reason we got involved with this. And it's ready, and we just moved into our new production facility just a few weeks ago, getting ready to ramp up, and we're ready to do so. Here's a picture of one of our installations up in Turkey Creek in Lincoln Hills. The next big component of our systems is the Aqua Therm integrated heat pump system. And again, the biggest users of electricity, or gas, I should say, in a home are the gas furnace and the gas water heater. And everybody is working hard to find, both for new homes, a replacement system of moving to all electric, and then replacements for existing homes. So our Aqua Therm system, we've really been working with a Carrier, and we've just installed our first working system in Davis as part of a PGE UC Davis Frontier Energy Monitoring installation.
1 minute left.
We're ready to roll this out very soon. The major benefits of this system is it's integrated space heating, space cooling, and water heating. And what it provides is the water heating is going to be a recovery that's similar to a gas water heater, about an hour to recover, whereas a typical hot water heat pump is a 7-hour recovery cycle. And the other huge benefit is it removes the defrost cycle from the homeowner's discomfort. Instead of turning on the air conditioner when your heater is running to try to de-ice the coils, we avoid that with this integrated system. So those are the systems we're very excited to bring to the marketplace, working with utilities like SMUD, PGE, all the others, California Energy Commission, and the PUC. So that's what I have.
Well, that's terrific. So just one question, is the heat pump an air-to-air heat exchanger, or is there a ground source option with an installation?
It is an air-to-air heating system today. We've got down the road plans to turn it into both air-to-air and ground loop. But initially, we're using right off the shelf high efficiency heat pump systems from Carrier that brings the production availability and the price point into an affordable range.
All right, thank you very much. I mean, so many things you're doing there are exactly, I think, what SMUD will be looking for in meeting its goals. And another big area, we'll turn to our next speaker with Lucid Optics. Sergey, I think I'm right in saying that lighting is still one of the biggest energy users and one of the bigger contributors to heat load within a building that must be removed. And you've been working on innovations in lighting for a number of years, and you've got some very clever things to offer in terms of drop-in replacements for the existing fluorescent fixtures. So welcome this morning. And Sergey, if you could take us through your ideas on how we can improve lighting in the typical building and make it more efficient.
Sure. Thank you very much, Gary. Can you see my slide?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So I'm Sergey Vasylyev, founder and CEO of Lucid Optics. We are developing energy efficient, thin and flexible LED lighting sheets to replace basically the old mainstream lighting fixtures employing fluorescent tubes. Why is this important? Well, lighting of our buildings consumes approximately 16% of the total electricity in the US. It is literally hundreds of terawatt hours of electricity annually. More than half of all lighting fixtures in commercial buildings use fluorescent tubes, more than 1 billion of them. They're outdated, inefficient, and tend to produce poor light quality with a choppy spectrum and flickering. Fluorescent tubes also contain mercury and often end up in landfills, poisoning the environment. The LED technology in general provides a much more energy efficient and environmentally friendly alternative. However, despite all of the advancements in the LEDs and huge positive changes in the consumer attitude and legislative efforts, fluorescent fixtures still dominate commercial buildings with the LED penetration of only 20% in the office space, for example. Why is this transition going so slow? One reason is the still high cost of the LED replacement fixtures. The other reason is the lack of attractive visual differentiation. The LED fixtures often take exactly the same old forms as the incumbent fluorescents they're intended to replace. And all this makes it much harder for the customers to justify the replacement for the energy saving reasons alone. So the solution we have come up with is a very thin and flexible LED lighting panel. It is about 50% more energy efficient than fluorescent sources and provides much higher light quality, new design opportunities, and better aesthetics. So the panel features lower weight and cost, and it is also easier in handling and installation compared to the traditional LED lighting fixtures. While this technology is still in development, we are already working on establishing a sustainable domestic manufacturing base here in Sacramento. The production will be using extremely small amounts of raw materials and energy and virtually no water or harsh chemicals. We already made our pilot product, which marked the world's first thin and flexible lighting panel. And it was recognized by the Illuminating Engineering Society as a unique and significant advancement to the art and science of lighting. So to sum up, we see this technology as an ideal candidate for replacing the fluorescent lights on a grand scale. This can be done through either drop-in replacements, through retrofits, or by creating completely new lighting designs. Doing so could reduce the lighting energy consumption by half, avoid tens of millions tons of carbon emissions, and save billions of dollars in energy costs on the annual basis. So with all that said, we're still on an early stage of commercialization. Our current customers are mostly companies that develop their own products, ranging from lighting devices to illuminated signage and electronic displays.
1 minute left.
Some of the challenges we are facing in targeting the mainstream illumination markets and going to scale include finding ways to demonstrate our products and their benefits, performance, and reliability in the relevant environment, in actual buildings. And this is where we are hoping to find partners and get feedback from the potential customers and industry stakeholders. Therefore, I would really like to take this opportunity to encourage any inquiries and collaboration in this area. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Sergey. I mean, the drop-in is, as you say, it's lightweight. It really doesn't change anything that you have to do in the fixture. It's a plug-in. So where are you seeing it being used now? Have you gotten penetration in the market in the fluorescents, or are you more in the signage area?
Yeah, so initially our customers, as I said, are the ones that are developing their own products. They're typically like architectural solutions and signage, as I mentioned. Yeah, and this is where we're seeing like more demand at our small production rate. And so, but on the other hand, this is the perfect niche for us to explore first, because this is where the cost advantages can be verified, and the performance can be also be validated for like long-term operation. So we have not yet released any product for replacing the fluorescent lights, because that would require competing with the existing solutions, which are mainstream solutions, and which where we have to compete head-to-head with the entrenched established market players like Philips, for example, General Electric, and so on.
Well, that sounds like a good point to work with SMUD on getting some demos here in the area where you might have a leg up by being local. So thank you very much, Sergey. Great stuff. We're going to turn now to two presentations which really introduce what Paul was talking about of leaving no communities behind. A lot of the technologies that we talk about are often expensive. They require a lot of capital investment upfront, and a lot of communities just can't do that. So they're not participating in the transition the way that we would like. So the first of these presentations, we're going to turn to Bob Guimarin, who is the CEO and founder of a company called Off the Wall Energy, a great name. You should patent that, trademark it anyway. But Paul, you've got a very different approach on how customers could install storage to their advantage in a way that's not so expensive and gives a lot of flexibility to renters to move the equipment around versus hanging something on the wall. So Bob, please tell us more about your innovations for this off-the-wall storage.
Thank you, Gary. I want to thank Thomas and Laura for helping set this panel up. You folks do, over the years, you do a lot of work, and it's really, you should be commended for what you do for the Sacramento community. So what we do at Off the Wall Energy is quite different. It's a different approach. So our product is a lightweight, portable energy storage device. So it's meant to be set on a tabletop or a counter on an entertainment center, and you plug it into the wall, and then you plug your devices into this unit. It's much like a smart power strip or something that is. It has an internal battery systems in it. It's limited in what it does, but has some very important capabilities. It's priced well below the thousands of dollars that you would pay for a wall-mounted, garage-mounted system like a Tesla Powerwall. But it has the capability to keep a home entertainment center or your major appliances like a refrigerator, keep them working when the grid goes down or there's a power outage that occurs. It has the ability to bring in energy when it's cheap and to use that energy when grid power is more expensive. At the same time, it can work with the utilities, so utilities can send a command to it to not use grid power, use its battery power for periods when the grid is under stress. So we've added a few things that really help to provide additional energy efficiencies. And one area is in the conversion between DC and AC power. I won't go into detail now, but we think some of those things are really important. And the real key is it's meant to be on a smaller scale. It's meant to be people who maybe live in apartments or housing who don't have an opportunity to put rooftop solar or a bunch of batteries in the garage, and they can take it with them when they move. Now, we've approached a number of folks, but we really need to get feedback from different customers in its delivery. And we think it's something that can really help communities of customers who are underserved or haven't had the opportunity to take advantage of some of these technologies. And it's something, like we say in those communities, where if they move from one location to or another, or within the same complex, they can just pick the unit up, take it with them, plug it into the new location. Now, I've been asked, how far along are you? What have you doing with this technology? So we've built a number of prototypes, and we've explored those prototypes with a limited number of customers. All of the customers are very enthusiastic about the concept. They like what they see, but we need to really prove out a lot of the benefits and values that we have in there. We're in that stage, that value desk stage, going from prototypes into production in that delivery. We've shared this with quite a number of residents who live in areas that are prone to public safety power shutdowns. And they would buy every one that I make. They often want to buy the prototype that I'm demonstrating to them. But we have to make sure that the design and the functions that we have in it work the way it does, and we need a way to document those benefits whenever you're providing a commercial product into the marketplace. So from our perspective, it would be great if we could arrange a small pilot of different customers, different scenarios, to get feedback and really validate and stress our product to see how it works. And then from there, we could take that before we go out and try to raise additional capital to build larger scale manufacturing capabilities. I'm often asked, well, how much money does it save me, or how long does it take to pay it off? Well, we've done a number of cases on what the payoff period is, and it's in some cases between 5 to 6 years. Everybody's a little different, and that's why having these different scenarios will help us test which scenario has what payoff period and which scenario has what kind of savings it can provide to individual customers. I think the most important thing is it starts really, I liked Paul's comment earlier.
1 minute left.
If we're going to get to 100%, we need to engage all the community, and 45% of Californians rent. And so they don't have the opportunities as other folks within California are for these larger, more expensive, longer 20-year systems provided there. So we're looking forward. I'm very appreciative to be on the panel. I love everything I'm hearing from the other panelists and the presenters. So let's go Sacramento.
Well, that's great, Bob. One thing that I really like about the approach you've taken is you don't need an electrician. You don't need to get a permit for this from the city. It's plug and play and very simple. I can see people going to Best Buy and picking up your product and taking it home. And they can do more than one, right? I mean, there's
Yes.
Depending on the appliance or equipment.
Yeah, one of the things is Gary mentioned, I try to not monopolize time, but if you notice this octagon, it's made in a sense that we use a lot of common components within the unit. And by raising the height of the octagon, we can increase the type of batteries. And we're in prototypes, we use a number of lithium ion. We're now moving to lithium iron phosphate batteries, gives us 3,000 to 5,000 life cycles. And so you could buy a unit that is for your entertainment center, a unit that's a little bit slightly taller than the one I presented here, that will run your refrigerator for 12 to 24 hours, depending on what kind of refrigerator you have. You can put it on your desktop. So you can place a number of these around your home. Maybe you want to assist your HVAC system so that you can get into the 5, 6, 7, 8 kilowatt hours, which is for many people, it's about half to 3/4 of their daily kilowatt hour usage. And so you can place them around where they use and support the devices that are connected to it. And that's kind of our, kind of a la mode. You get the best price point for how you want to use it, and the customer gets to make that decision before they go all in with a $20,000 or $30,000 investment.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a very unique approach, and one which should have a lot of.
I mentioned one thing. Its ability to communicate with the grid. Its ability to communicate with you through not only its mobile app but its internet. It's a very intelligent device, and that when the power goes out, it can notify you through text or email or voice if you're in your home that the power's out. Give you an estimate about how long. You can integrate it with your smart home systems, your smart thermostats and things. So we've really designed it to kind of move into this whole era of full engagement by the end consumer with their electronic devices.
You have time?
That's fantastic. We're going to move on, but Bob, in the chat, notice that there's somebody from Grid Alternatives who works with low-income and disadvantaged communities, and they immediately want to talk to you.
Great.
But now let's go to another type of technology, which could be very important for people in situations where they can't spend a whole lot of money, but do want to improve their energy performance and reduce their energy bills. Danny Eastman is the CEO and founder of ThermēShade, which is another way to reduce energy losses in buildings. So Diana, tell us what ThermēShade can do for people.
Well, good morning, Gary, and thank you to CleanStart and Mr. Lau. That was very energizing about his potential for using multiple technologies. And luckily, we already have had some sort of relationship, which I'll speak about later. So, to start with, so this is going to be a bit of calisthenics because our material is so visual that I'm going to try and run through what the material is, what it does, and then have a couple seconds left for actual viewing of the product itself, since I have it set up. So the Thermoshade material improves the efficiency of window glass by minimizing the transfer of heat. Most of the applications are interior roller shades, but we can also be used in screens for reducing heat gain from, say, skylights, which can be effective. So reducing the solar heat gain in homes and offices is key to reducing HVAC runtimes and creating personal comfort, which is what all the architects and everyone in energy efficiency talks about. So this is where the innovative technology comes in with a little assist from NASA. So traditional shades block visible light. And so you have a little very dark weave, you roll them down, it's dark in your house. So our product blocks another spectrum of heat producing energy called near infrared. So the result is a shade that cuts glare and is highly transparent. Because it's so transparent, it could be left down all the time. And since it's effective, positioning this is key, because if it's down all the time, it's always functioning. So people barely notice that it's in the window. So how do we know it works? Luckily, the Department of Energy, as Mr. Lau was talking about, has taken an interest in calculating potential energy savings for window shades. Lucky for us. So each shade material can now be tested and placed in a database. So engineers, architects can access these values, usually run them through Energy Pro, and to calculate their efficiency. So if you're doing a retrofit or a new project, you can build this right into the model. So we're happy to announce that Thermoshade outperformed all the shades when it comes to the amount of visible light and heat gain in this database. So Lawrence Berkeley Lab Optics showed that 53% of the solar heat gain is rejected when the shade is placed over a base window. And of course, they measure it at 90 degrees. So as the sun goes up, it's actually more efficient. So 53% is actually a minimal number. So back to SMUD, a small field assessment was done by SMUD showing that the material saved 0.9 kilowatt hours of cooling energy per square foot during the Sacramento summer months. So of course, the more you use, the more efficient it's going to be. And the shades would be a good candidate technology for use in building energy retrofits in areas with high cooling loads. So the possible integration of window shades into energy incentive programs would be one of the most cost-effective ways to improve window performance and comfort across any income strata.
1 minute left.
So the material is ready to commercialize with all supply chains secured. Because it's so visual, I'm gonna, what I have is a couple windows set up. So I'm going to rush through this. I'm going to turn off the my video for a second and reposition the camera and then let you see what it looks like. So bear with me. So this particular window is a large sliding glass panels. And traditionally the veins, the plastic veins would be blocking the light. But now what you can see is that you can see well through it. See if I can do this. So it is reducing the glare. So you got those little coverings. And then it might be an opportunity to just show you how thin this material is. So this is 0.09 inches thick, so about the width of a couple of pieces of paper. So a lot of material can be placed on a roll. Is that time? So let me.
Yes.
Okay. Well, so I guess I got one window. Do you want me to do another?
Just continue, Diane.
Okay. I'm rushing. So I'm going to stop the video right now and share another window with you for the grand finale here. And also one thing, drum roll. So another thing that we haven't discussed is the thermal protection during the winter. So during the winter, the material also reflects thermal energy, your gas and other appliances to keep the house insulated. So here is a window, a larger window with the screen down. And you can see that it's clear. And so this is what I mean by it's working all the time. So when you get huge amounts of sun, it's reducing the solar heat gain, but people don't know it's in the window. So it's unique in that way too. So that is the end of the presentation, and I will cede to the other wonderful technologies.
So in terms of payback, in terms of the reductions in heat loss, et cetera, do you have any notions of what the cost benefit is on this?
So cost benefit, again, depends on, so I talked about the savings in kilowatt hours of cooling energy that SMUD calculated. So yes, you could calculate that. And especially if SMUD does another pilot. This was done quite a while ago and it was very small. So this would be a great chance to do that. So if you calculate the kilowatt hours of cooling energy per square foot, yes, you can. So like I said, the more material you put in the windows, and usually if you do a commercial space, which is very effective, the more you put in, the more you can save. So yes, both the energy modeling and the short study that SMUD did can calculate how much you can save physically, because you also save on fan power, lower runtimes in HVAC systems, improves the longevity of the machines. So there are lots of other costs to calculate as well.
All right. Well, that is fantastic. And again, a very simple addition. When I had to get my home remodeled and meet all the codes, we did put up those very dense gray plastic shade screens, which my family immediately took down and hid from me, and I've not been able to find them since. So we're nowhere near.
So now you have heat issues at the glass, unfortunately.
Absolutely, and then everybody complains about that. So very good. But let's move on to the last member of our panel in the morning here, Jerremy Spillman. He's Chief Revenue Officer and co-founder of Hank. Hank has a company based on the insight really that just installing energy management systems in buildings does not necessarily lead to much in the way of energy savings if they don't perform well and if they're not used well. And you've had some great success in really making some dramatic improvements in building energy performance by what you've done. So Jerremy, can you tell us about your product and where you stand with that now? And welcome this morning.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and thank you so much for having me, Gary. So, what our product does is it combines a technology and a service that is very much needed when it comes to the management in commercial real estate. HVAC compromises not only 25% of overall commercial building OpEx when you look at both the energy costs as well as the maintenance, replacement costs, all the money that continuously goes into here. And I think what we found is the way that you can really push this and advance this is not only focusing on what we're doing sustainability wise by reducing the energy consumption, which is really our core goal, but if you can paint this in a way that you can get building ownership groups to actually say, okay, great, this provides not only a sustainability return, but an overall return on my building, it's really kind of shifting it from being an energy-only platform to end-to-end commercial management of HVAC. And that's what we're finding here right now is the current solutions that exist in the space now, and this is really what we've kind of broken it out into, is there's too many hands trying to move too many objects. And that's the problem that you see, and why there's not really been an advancement in software or winner takes all in this market is simply due to the fact that there's too many people coming to the trough to eat. You have analytics software that are going to tell you how your building is supposed to be improved. Well, that gets handed off to a different person on the building automation side, who is then managed by an HVAC contractor. And then on a day-to-day, the building engineer has to look over that. And overlooking all of this is a property manager, which makes it a completely broken supply chain where there's nobody owning the end-to-end management. Because in all reality, the easiest way to run a commercial building when it comes to HVAC is just to have no automation. Run everything at max heating and cooling at the same time, and you're never going to get any tenant complaints because the VAVs or the actual vents themselves in the zones will open up enough and close down enough to provide that. And that is such a massive energy waste. 40% of carbon emissions come from the built environment. And that is so tied into the fact that not only is the software and technology behind in commercial HVAC management, but there's no end-to-end solution. Everything is fragmented in this area right now. And that's where we developed Hank, right? You have these I think that everybody, it would be as surprised as I was when you walk into these, even the beautiful buildings that we have, Capitol Mall in Sacramento, right? These massive, great looking, shining buildings is being run off of a computer that's Windows XP software. Pre-iPhone 1 technology is running the most expensive energy consumer in these billion-dollar assets is being run off of this type of software, which I think should just tell everybody everything that they need to know right there. There has not been any marketed improvements in software management and software tools in this industry because, as we talk about it, the OEMs are focused on selling hardware, selling new, more efficient equipment. But if you run that efficient equipment the same way that you were running the old inefficient equipment, you're not going to see the improvements that are expected. So people aren't putting the time. Nobody's focused on software because you don't see the same margins when it comes from the OEMs and the Siemens, the Johnson Controls. All of those ones are focused on hardware where we could come in and change the software component of it. Well, you take that a little bit further and you go, okay, great. The AI, the software is doing all of these great things, but then you have the virtual building engineering, this bureau that we're building now based out here in the Sacramento area that is not only supporting the software platform in itself, but supporting these buildings. So an engineer in a building doesn't just say, hey, you know what, I got a tenant complaint. I'm going to go and completely throw out all of the efficient operations that have been put in this site because I don't understand it. They now have a resource that they can come to and say, hey, I got a complaint today, or the comfort seems a little bit off. The building's a little warm, the building's a little cold. And we can come up with a solution together that doesn't throw away that optimization, that helps them manage the day-to-day performance of that building without the concern of, I'm going to get in trouble because I got too many complaints, or I'm going to get this. Because at the end of the day, the building engineer and the building management people, their goal is not to save energy. Their goal is not to reduce carbon emissions. Their goal is to maintain and operate the building, which everybody in it is happy and comfortable. And there's a big time crossover that's now happening at these big investment levels that are saying, we now have to meet ESG goals. How do we do that? And that's Hank, putting a virtual engineer in every building, where we integrate with 95% of the building management systems on site. We're software only. There's no hardware. There's no capital costs. There's nothing like that. We're able to go in and utilizing our AI control, reduce HVAC energy costs by up to 50% without having to install one new piece of equipment. And then utilizing our on-site service in the virtual building engineering, we're now taking off 80% of HVAC service calls that are now running through the virtual engineering team. So you're not spending additional dollars and having more and more people come into your building, change the operations of it. So this provides not only a massive, KWH, KW demand reduction, all these great things on the energy side, but it gives the overall building a very healthy increase to net operating income.
There was a time, Jeremy, when we tried to incentivize energy efficiency through performance incentives. And that became very difficult for people to verify because there are variations in weather and all that, comparing one time to another. So it all kind of came back to incentives for putting equipment on, because that was verifiable and you had some notion of what that equipment would do. Your insight is, though, that even if you put the equipment on, you're not necessarily achieving the savings. So does your software help us get back to paying people for performance, and we should organize incentives around that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that's, again, you look at the challenges in the industry, right? Is great. I just bought a very efficient new chiller system for, $300,000. Okay, great. I get incentivized for that. But in 2 years, if the operations of that efficient chiller have changed or have not been upkept, or somebody has gone in and say, hey, we're just going to run it at max because, you know what, summertime in California gets pretty hot, you're really losing, the utility themselves are, the estimated energy savings that they had, right? You can try to baseline it on a hardware side, and you might be able to get some of that. But what if they just run the chiller now, even though it's more efficient, 5 more hours? You're not seeing any kWh reduction. You're not seeing really any value in that. You're just saying you bought a more efficient piece of equipment, and people forget about the operations of what actually happens on site. And that again goes back to, I think, the challenge in the industry where our goal is not necessarily to sell a software service, right? Our goal is virtual building engineering, because somebody has to be responsible for the day-to-day operations of the HVAC equipment. And right now we're seeing a massive, kind of decrease in not only the talent level, but just people that are going into the building engineering field, right? We're seeing, it's blue collar is a very different, trade than it was 20, 30 years ago. So with less people going into this field, the talent pool tends to dry up, and the people that are coming into this aren't the engineering type, right? Don't have the background to understand the mechanics of what needs to happen on the buildings. So as more and more engineers retire out, there's less and less coming in. So that leaves an even larger gap of saying who can really understand what needs to happen in the operations of the building. Whereas great as the AI is, I always say what keeps us around is we get into the building with great energy savings up front, but what keeps us with our clients, why we have such a low churn rate, is the virtual building engineering aspect of it, because we become imperative to how that building is running to maintain the efficiencies and maintain all the things that are happening on a day-to-day basis in a commercial office building.
Yeah, and that's really important. I mean, basically, your AI, the guy that you've named Hank, is now the virtual assistant, and you don't need so much expertise from the building manager to understand how to operate the system. So, I mean, penetration-wise, how are you doing? I know you were acquired by Jones Lang LaSalle out of Chicago, huge building owner. But what do you see in Sacramento? Is this a hotbed of activity here, or is there a lot of potential left for your company to apply this technique?
Oh yeah, I mean every building over 50,000 square feet with a centralized system is an opportunity for Hank to go in and put this in there. We grew in Sacramento. We've got some great customers out here. We've worked with SMUD in some places, as well, to incentivize our customers for installing Hank, just due to the fact that we can drive massive energy reduction. I think that focusing on like the ownerships, the leaders in Sacramento who own these buildings, who have not only a fiscal responsibility, but overall, an ESG, a sustainability responsibility, is really key for us to continue to grow in the area. I think the more that we can work with companies, utilities, specifically, obviously, SMUD in the Sacramento area, to provide additional incentives, to make it so financially, to almost make it a bad move not to do financially, right, is really key for us. And we'll continue to grow that relationship with SMUD and continue to grow here. But again, Sacramento has, what was it? It was 91 degrees last week and 38 degrees this morning. And a lot of times, this is where you see the lack of expertise and experience to handle those comforts, those temperature swings, so that you're not seeing the proper automation, the proper running of the building, because the comfort can be too complex to really deliver on that. So I think that Sacramento is a great region for it. And I do think that we will continue to see growth here. We're seeing great growth in the Bay Area. As energy rates get higher, as summer comes up and we start getting into peak demand and super peak demand, now is the time where we can provide really the highest level of cost savings to our clients as well.
So what were you saying about the average energy reduction from installing Hank? Are we talking 20, 30% in building energy use, or?
Yeah, I think that we typically average around 20% of total building energy, right? Not just specific to HVAC. So on-bill energy reduction is typically around 20%. There's been buildings where we've gone in that were really challenged, and we've gotten up to like the 25, 30%. There's been buildings we've gone in that are just, more efficient in nature. As I mentioned, we work with in the East Coast, a lot of like chill beam, slab cooling, slab heating. So it's just a hydronic system. So it's more efficient in nature, but even being able to capture additional energy savings in LEED platinum buildings, energy scores that are 95 to 98 and still driving those considerable energy savings, I think really shows that we're not going in and saying that your building is being run poorly. We've come up with a new way to have software run your building. It's just not available in current systems.
All right. Thank you very much, Jeremy.
You're welcome.
Very interesting. That's really fascinating. So let's open up to a short discussion here. And I want to turn back to Rick, because Rick, I'm watching you and I'm seeing the gears grinding in your head as you're hearing about some of these building innovations, lighting and ThermēShade and Hank and the storage systems. Do you see opportunity here in terms of application of these additional technologies? And I'm particularly interested in the envelope part of it, because windows have always been an issue. The performance is not all that great. We have been looking with companies that provide vacuum insulated glass potentially to improve that. But Diana's product in particular has been fascinating, just because it's simple, but yet apparently very effective. Just wanted to get your thoughts on what you've heard on the panel this morning.
Oh, thank you. Very, very fascinating. And absolutely, I really interested. We work with our builders to develop the technologies that make their homes compliant, energy efficient. And window shades that are see-through are great. So that's a great tool. Obviously, LED lighting, efficient lighting is a huge part of the solution. So we've worked a little bit with Hank, and that's very fascinating about how you can operate the system better. So, and of course, the point of use USP or backup power that Bob is sharing is very fascinating. So really cool things for application to existing homes is what I'm seeing and hearing.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot out there, whether it's existing or new build, but, a lot of opportunity. So in terms of rolling out your technologies and what's been your experience with SMUD, is there anything that SMUD could do to help move the technologies that you've already got in the pipeline forward faster?
Well, COVID has been a challenge. It's been really tough to get SMUD personnel out in the workplace. I think that's over now. We just recently had some SMUD folks out looking at our Aqua Therm Air, and we weren't able to get the battery addressed yet. But we're really excited to see SMUD personnel back in the into the public world, and we're in fact just submitted a proposal for SMUD on the battery deployment that we'll see how that works out. And we've been talking to SMUD people about how the heat pump system can be a solution for project districts that the transmission lines will not support electrification of current technologies. And our unit doesn't require electric resistance heating. So we can use the existing electric panels in most applications and still provide electric space heat and electric water heating at high efficiency heat pumps. So we're right at that stage of beginning to engage aggressively with partners like SMUD.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I guess you've had success too with PG&E outside the SMUD territory and getting them involved with some of the solutions you're offering.
Yeah, we've had a long-term partnership with UC Davis, the Western Cooling Efficiency Center, and one of their professors is the home installation site, and their connections with Frontier Energy and PGE made that a real natural place to get the first on the ground real world data on the performance of the system. So that'll be a benefit to everybody else, SMUD as well.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you. Sergey, if you could design the perfect program with SMUD to demonstrate your product, what would that look like for you? Just take a building and give it a try, or do you have something more specific in mind?
Yeah, I think it would be great to spend some time on like specifying the system, maybe even trying to fit it to the specific kind of lighting fixtures that are installed or are desired to be installed, maybe working with the architect or engineer, but it's like in the ideal case. But in the simplest case, maybe just trying to select a space with just conventional trophers, which are, represent the lion's share of the lighting fixtures in California in particular, like this 2x4 fluorescent trophers, and maybe just trying to design the system that would fit exactly in those spaces, so that they could be just used as a drop-in replacement, and maybe setting up like two identical, let's say, spaces where the first one would have the original fluorescent luminaires, fluorescent fixtures, and the other one will have our lighting sheets, LED lighting sheets installed, and maybe run that space for a certain period of time, and have certain sensors installed, and just compare the performance of those spaces.
Yeah, that'd be a fantastic test, and love to see that actually with all the technologies we talked about this morning. We're going to wrap up the panel here. Thank you all for participating. It's been a fantastic discussion. Love to see all the creativity that's going on here in the area, and hopefully there will be some things that we can demonstrate locally. But to everybody that we've talked to, Jerremy, Diana, Sergey, Rick, Bob, many thanks for what you've done for us. This has been a focus on in meeting the zero carbon goal. If we could reduce the amount of energy that's required, then that gets us a long way towards meeting that goal as well.